I am Halli Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, where along with my partner in politics, veteran White House correspondent in Time, and Newsweek alum Matthew Cooper, we slice and dice all things politics, and some days, our lawmakers too. On this episode of the Halli Casser-Jayne Show with Matthew Cooper, migrants are crossing the border in droves. How is it that the Biden administration got caught off guard? How is it that the Biden administration is repeating the awful mistakes of the Trump administration? After a perfectly flawless nearly 2 months in office, a brilliant rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine, a phenomenal legislative achievement with the passage of President Biden's rescue bill, even Republican lawmakers are envious of Biden. And yet, there's that migrant problem threatening to undermine all the good President Biden has done. Then, of course, there's those Maga men who are refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccination. What's up with that? There's the Governor Cuomo situation. And there's also the Meghan Markle and Harry situation, an earthquake whose aftershocks are still causing waves on both sides of the pond. And that's just where we begin this week on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. It's Halli and Matt time. Here we go. Good morning, Matthew. Here's where we are this week in our fight against coronavirus and God knows what else. As of this morning, there are well over 542,000 COVID-19 deaths in the United States, which equates to 1 death per minute, and more than 30 million Americans who have been infected with the virus. There had been a slight downturn. We reported that last week, but that figure is ticking up again in some states. I think Michigan, it's more than a slight uptick. There's great news on the report on the vaccines. Since vaccine distribution began in the U.S. on December 14th, more than 110 million doses have been administered, reaching 21.7% of the total U.S. population. That's according to the CDC. The U.S. is currently administering over 2.4 million shots a day. That said, many Republican members of Congress are refusing to get the jab, and almost half of white male Republicans say they won't get the vaccine. A couple of days ago, Democrats and President Biden began shaming Trump, who did not take part in a PSA by former presidents to hawk the vaccine. So he did, sorta, went on Fox News, encouraged his followers to get the jab. All that said, ready for this, Matthew? Last Friday, I became one of the stats of those Americans who got the second jab. And do I have
fantastic?
Yeah. Not so fantastic.
Oh, not so fantastic.
Well, remember I told you the first one, I didn't feel so hot, a little bit more, didn't feel so hot than most people.
Yeah, you'd said you had a history of kind of tough.
Yeah, I don't do well. I got sick.
Oh, boy.
Took to the bed for almost 3 days.
Oh, boy. I'm so sorry.
I had it at 4. I want to tell everybody about this. I hesitate to talk about this, but I will talk about it because it has a happy ending. And if I'm the worst case scenario, I'm telling everybody before I tell you the story, get the damn vaccine. It doesn't kill you. It does make some people sick. It made me sick. I was vaccinated at 4:30. I felt great. I went out afterwards and I did a couple of errands. I came home a couple of hours later. I had to go to sleep. I was just...
Not so good, yeah. I
didn't feel sick. I just felt exhausted. I woke up 6 or 6:30 the next morning thinking I was in Siberia. I was so cold. No matter what I did, I could not get warm.
Right.
Right?
Oh, boy.
Chills.
Yeah.
Went from there, it got worse. So I think I got up at that point and said, maybe you should take something. I don't even remember because a lot of it is a blur. I was that kind of sick. I went back to sleep with the cat and the dog wrapped around me because they knew I was shivering. And I woke again at 2:00 in the afternoon and I knew I was really sick. Stomach ache, headache, dizzy. Oh my God. You couldn't touch me because my skin hurt, which was really weird. I took 2 Tylenol. Went back to sleep, woke up a couple of hours later and said, you know what? Maybe you're really sick. Took my temperature. Sure enough, I had 100, which for me is high. And that's how it went for the next 48 hours. The fever didn't break until late that next day. Sunday, almost 2 days later, late in the afternoon. And then not until today do I really feel better. I'm still a little tired from it, I can feel, but I definitely feel better. It was the last time I'd gotten sick, by the way, I was 1985. I don't get sick. I don't get the flu. I don't get colds. That was the last time. And it was as bad as having the flu.
You haven't been sick in 36 years?
I have not gotten a cold or a flu in all those years. Can you believe that? I don't get sick. I get bad things, like weird things, but I don't get colds and I don't get the flu. So this was, I know. Do you? You get the flu? You get the colds?
It's been a while on the flu. I get colds. Yeah, I get colds, no question.
Yeah, no, I don't get colds. I'm like, but I did talk to a doctor friend of mine who said your reaction is very interesting. We're finding that most older people, and I guess I'm in that range, sort of, don't have bad reactions to it because they have low immune systems. But if you had a bad reaction to it, that's telling me you've got a really healthy immune system. So that's the good news. Anyway, I'm fine, and I'm encouraged. I'm telling the story because I know you're getting to the point where you're about maybe close to getting your vaccine, and I want you to get it, and I want everybody to get it. So let's go there. How's it going in Washington with rolling it out?
Well, D.C. has not been great. Part of it is that we allow vaccinations for people from adjacent Virginia and Maryland if they work here. And lots of Marylanders and Virginians have been getting shots here. The result of that and a relatively low supply has meant that our vaccination rates is among the lowest in the country. Hopefully that is going to change as more doses become available. But for the moment, it's not been great. And so
why is it so low? Because here we have more than they can deliver. Well,
I think part of it is that a lot of it's getting hoovered up by Virginians and Maryland. Okay. We're small, relatively small population districts surrounded by populous suburbs. And I think they've kind of honed in on our supply. So I think well over half of what we've gotten has gone to them. So that's kind of where we're at. I've been trying to get a shot and, trying various ways to get it because I am eligible under the current criteria. And I'd like to get it before May 1st when the district is going to open it up to everyone, and so that I don't want to compete with the entire population. So I would still, like to get it soon as I can. I think, I'm at an age where I don't really want to, if I get it, it's bad, and so I really
no. You're absolutely everybody should get it, and for all my hooping and hollering, and I even said to you, remember when I got the first one a couple of weeks ago? I said to you, oh my gosh, who knows what they're putting in our arms? I mean, this could be like some mass control thing by the federal government if you want to go off the wall, but honestly, I'm here to tell the story, and it's a smart thing to do, and everybody should do it. It's silly. I think Biden has done a great job on this. I mean, every day, the amount of people getting vaccinated just goes up exponentially, and it's that's a huge effort going from nothing to that, in just a number of weeks. But I don't know.
Yeah. People just got to get it.
They just got to get it. But, I'll ask you this question because I know what your answer is going to be. But you keep asking me the question. I don't understand these white men. I just don't. They're the ones who need it the most, by the way. Heart condition.
I'm sorry, the men?
The white Republican men.
What? That hopefully things like Trump endorsing it will help a little. I don't know. I mean, I guess they're conservative and they got convinced that Fauci and the medical establishment were somehow, I don't know what the hell, but somehow they've become perversely convinced that this is the inoculations and the mask wearing are a bad thing.
And listen,
my great hope is that as people know more and more people personally, rather than just what they're hearing on Fox News, but when they know people personally who have gotten it and are doing fine and, now aren't worried and take their masks off more and whatever, that they'll be convinced that this obstinance will not continue. But, who the hell knows?
They can't get to herd immunity if they don't get that 49% to jump on board, which is why they went to Trump in the first place. But let me tell you, the joke of this is on Fox with all of these anti-vaxxers on heading all of these shows. The two people who've had the shot, the first ones were Rupert Murdoch, by the way, and Donald Trump. I mean, that's the joke.
No, absolutely. And, of course, they're observing all the protocols at News Corp. Mask wearing, and they're all staying home. And, they're not treating it at Fox like it's a joke or a
not
fraud.
the people. Yeah, not the people who are, are I don't know, you don't know what to call them over there because they're not journalists. They're really not. But I have a go-to friend, I think I told you, a woman who's a, dyed-in-the-wool Republican staunch Trumper. And she tells me that she's not getting the vaccine. And I kind of said, what's the deal here? And she said it's not Trump. She said, I don't know if it's a trustworthy vaccine. And, that's the danger because now it's not Trump. It's, they've just put the fear of God in what's in this vaccine to these, libertarian Republican types. So,
right. Well, that's, it is a problem. I think the hope is that it will.
Here's an interesting, I hope they better come around because if they don't come around, us getting shots isn't going to mean a damn thing long term. Israeli Jews can now go back to Israel. I just read this a little while ago. I just wanted to throw it at you with the caveat that they're going to have to wear electronic bracelets around their while they're in quarantine over how many days they're making them quarantine when they come back from wherever they've been living. I find that fascinating. I wonder if you could pull that off here.
I think you know the answer.
Yeah, exactly. But they've been so smart about it, they really have over there, and they've done
well. Their inoculation rate has been amazing, and if you've probably seen a video of Tel Aviv, everyone's out in the restaurants, and it's kind of getting back to normal. So that's terrific.
Yeah, you'd think that people would learn from that here, right? But you don't. So let's go from the sublime to the ridiculous, because I want to pick up where we left off last week on this Harry and Meghan thing. I think it's a story, but for a different reason than I thought it was a story before. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but you watch the news and you learn how things are playing and how PR people are manipulating the news, Matt, right? I mean, you and I have been doing this a long time, playing this news game. So after all was said and done, right, with all of that, Gayle King yesterday gets on TV and reports for CBS News that Meghan and Harry had spoken to Prince Charles and to William. And she wanted to make sure that everybody knew that the call didn't go well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you what's been coming to me from a lot of people, I'm curious. We're getting into touchy ground here, but I'm going to go there because I think it's interesting. Even Michelle Obama commented on it yesterday, and she said, "I'm not surprised, that the allegations were made." But I thought she had said something decent, and which is probably the most important thing that could have been said in all of this, and that she said that she just hopes that there's forgiveness in everybody's hearts who are involved in this thing. So she was she was a step away from it. She wasn't into it. But here's what I'm getting from friends, which is there's a story that Democratic operatives went to Meghan and talked to her about possibly running for president of the United States. I had no way to verify that one way or the other. But that story is floating in mainstream media right now. It seems that the day after all this happened, a lot of her personal friends and what have you went out on air and said, "We've got proof of this. She's not." I think there's a movement in here. There's a PR campaign by prominent Black women to use this to empower other Black women. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the PR is now saying the Black princess. And I'm talking mainstream PR. In other words, they're getting the stories from Meghan and Harry's PR people. And I'm just curious as to what you're thinking about this. we're watching a movement, and it's so wonderful to see that there are a lot of new black reporters on MSNBC. Thank God. Color is now being, dealt with in the way it should be. But can this go too far?
Well, let me unpack that a bit.
Okay.
I don't know that, I have no firsthand knowledge and don't know the truth of what happened at the palace and who's telling what story, but, Meghan Markle's account of her time in the palace echoes what Diana said so closely that I think it's worth taking, quite seriously. I mean, it's very similar in lots of ways. They refer to the firm. And I think if you gave Diana credence, you should give this credence too. I just don't see it as a broad, and so there's that part of it. I guess I don't see it as a broad effort by African American women in the United States to promote themselves.
No, not to promote themselves, to promote a movement of, empowering black women. Let me go back to something you just said, though, about Diana. Diana was white. This one's black or biracial. So I'm not sure the color is the issue here so much as outsider.
Well, you were suggesting, maybe I misunderstood what you said, but you were suggesting to me anyway that this has a lot to do with her African American heritage.
No, not
others are playing on that.
No, that's here in the States. When you bring up what's going on in the firm, what was going on, let's say, by the Queen and Charles and William and what have you. That's a different issue than I'm talking about. I'm talking about how it's being played in the United States. If by the way, if you want to know how it's being played over there, they're losing the battle over there. The country, England is royalist, and they're not buying into Meghan's thing. Her poll numbers are very bad over there, and most people over there are pro the Queen and what have you. Now I'm talking about over here and using it over here. And
well,
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess there is to some degree. It goes into a narrative of oppression. I guess that's true, but that doesn't seem, crazy to me. As far as her rank for president, I don't know. I haven't seen the story about operatives, but it seems to me, pretty implausible on many levels.
It would
not to mention there's already a biracial woman sort of poised in the Democratic Party to be the next nominee. So I just don't see the
By the way,
boomlet.
I'm glad you brought her up because I haven't heard her say anything really. Have you?
No, I don't think she's weighed in, nor is the president. I mean,
fascinating. Just fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it is a foreign policy question. I don't think they want to, they've got complicated relationships with Boris Johnson already.
Yeah.
We have to negotiate a trade deal with England now that they're out of the EU. So I think they're quite wise to stay out of it.
It's always good to look at stories from different points of view, and we don't always have the time to do that. And so I felt it was important to go there. And
sure.
Yeah. And let's watch this thing as it plays out, because it can catapult a movement, which is an important movement. I mean, good for black women, honey. Go take over the world. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
let's see how it plays, because I think it is a different story in this country than it is overseas. That's all I was sort of getting at around about. Well, can we talk about the border? Unless you have some. Oh, no, I do want to say one other thing. Prince Philip is home, 99 years. Oh, yes. God bless him. Surviving all of that.
They got some genes in that family.
Whoa, baby. I mean, I want to move on now from the sublime to the ridiculous, as I said. That's what this show was going to be, folks, because it's just one crazy thing after the other. All right. A few weeks ago, I said to you, there's a mess at the border, and Biden is walking into a minefield, and he better catch up and take this bull by the horn, or else.
You did, and I agreed with you.
We are right. This is a mess.
Yes, it is a mess.
How in the hell could this get so bad so soon? And by the way, they are so tone deaf to it, even as we speak. Biden.
They being the Biden administration.
Yeah. You talk to me, because this is really crazy.
Yeah, well, we've had surges, over the last few years of people coming in and seeking refugee status from Central America. But this one's been really fast and swelled very fast, and it's raised concern that there's a sense among potential refugees in Central America that the Biden administration is more welcoming, and that they're going to accommodate them better, and that it's worth taking the risk to travel here. And I think the Biden administration is kind of fueled that sense with, we're not going to deport anyone right now. We're going to have a freeze on deportations. So I think they've sent that signal. I don't think it's unfair to read it that way. And the problem is they do have this surge. Now they got to take care of these people in a way that's more humane than the Trump administration did. And they have to send the signal, don't come. And they have to try to find a way to process people process their refugee status outside the United States, which is something a lot of Democrats criticize Trump for. I think they're going to try to do it too. So, yeah, it's a mess, and it's interesting that Democratic Hispanic congressmen from Texas have been among the most vociferous about this. Or maybe it's not surprising since it's their border.
He's even muzzling the border authorities. I mean, so let's discuss this. What is it about this whole issue that it upends both parties? Everybody goes into apoplexy over it. Nobody gets in. This is nutty stuff that this can't be dealt with on a bipartisan basis. ASAP, let's fix this and let's stop this. And it gets into the filibuster. You know what I mean? There's a conversation to be had here, but it's caught up in the culture wars and the ability of one party to, have minority rule, if you will, or majority rule with this craziness. This is just crazy stuff. It's just, in every other way, this administration, the Biden administration, has done such a remarkable job on everything they've touched in such a short period of time. No drama. Learn from Obama's mistakes.
Right. No, high competence.
And then to have this complete mess up and giving now Biden is out touting, the his wonderful bill, and the only thing anybody wants to talk to him about is the border. So you've been around a long time. How do they get how do they get so stupid? I want to know. I mean, maybe the question is, what's the solution?
Well, I think part of it is I think it would be hard for any administration to deal with thousands of migrants coming to the border. I think that would be hard for anyone to deal, and most of that is being driven by really, basically kind of a terrorist state down there in Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua.
In Salvador, it's a nightmare.
In Salvador,
been there, lived that.
It's a region you, of course, know well. It's really messed. I think any administration would be facing an outflow and would be hard pressed to handle it.
Can I help them?
We know.
Can I help them? I can help them. Want to hear how I help them?
Yes.
Here's how they help them. You call a press conference. I am starting whatever you're going to call it. We're going to have Republicans and we're going to have Democrats on this. And we are going to come up with a solution about how we are going to go into those countries and help clean them up. And we will together work on how we solve this problem together. A commission. Let's start there. Easiest thing in the world to pull together. And everybody's got a reason to make this work. Both sides, Republicans and Democrats, unless you give them a reason to make it a fight. So Biden, who's the master of pulling everybody together and, bipartisan, whatever, get up there, make a speech and saying this has gone on too long. We know what the problems are. We need to get them involved. Maybe we'll get the UN involved. Maybe we'll get people from other countries involved. That would stop it. Do you know what I'm saying? Would stop the crazy. What's so hard about that? You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts weekly at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and on all your favorite apps. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device too. Just say the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at Halli Show Quotes.
Well, in theory, I think you're right. I just don't know if the Republicans will be, sign on to anything that addresses root causes, that favors, more money to fix the problem down there. I'm not sure we can fix the problem down there, but it's worth trying, at least.
Here's the thing. I guess my point would be to you. I'm not talking about that because even forming a commission doesn't get the work done immediately. But what it does do is it makes you look like you're humanitarian. You're not just sitting by and watching this crazy happen, and you're trying to take some control of it. I mean, it's from a PR point of view, if nothing else. At least that's something, instead of saying, don't talk to anybody any press, and don't let the press in to see how the bad conditions are over there. We're right back to Trumpville.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's just very hard to create the disincentives for people to come, but that's what they need to do, and that's tough.
It's tough. It's tough, but it's I don't think it's as tough as the politicians make it. I'm on a roll this week as everybody keeps talking about some of the stuff that's happening in the news, and you get a Claire McCaskill saying, well, it's Cuomo. Let's talk about Cuomo. You get Claire McCaskill, the former senator from Missouri, saying, well, there's a political part to this, and then there's the cultural part and the moral part and whatever. And I'm going, no, there is no political part to this. There shouldn't be a political part to this. But politicians see everything through political lens.
Always, yeah.
And I don't know if that was always the way the politicians saw the world. When things used to get done, they saw it through a cultural lens, through a humanitarian lens. And now they only see it through a political lens. I mean, so here we are. And it's a few weeks later, and, they've started doing the investigation. And this Charlotte Bennett character, and she's really one for the books, but I've done more research on her. She's a nut job. She goes up and she testifies, and I'm not saying that this didn't happen to her. Let me preface that, Matt. Let me just say, though, that she is a virulent, anti-sexual harassment person who has spent her entire, how many years old she is, working on this. With 120 pages of records and documents to corroborate her allegations, because we all keep 120 pages of records and documents about our conversations with the governor. I'm sorry.
But you did a nut job.
She has, I brought this up last week. If you go look her bio up, and they've tried to scrub it, but there were some old pages up there that you can get to. She majored in women's studies in college, and then every job that she has had thereafter have been for these radical groups, women's groups, not just her jobs, but committees that this has been an issue for her of major, like there's nothing else in her life but this. That always makes me suspicious, because I don't know what happened to her. She may have had, been sexually abused as a kid. This made her, an advocate, and died in the wool. I'm going to stop this.
But when you say nut job, you're not saying she imagined it.
I don't buy her story, because she actually, if you listen to the interview on CBS, she couldn't come up with answers, and she was helped through that interview by Nora O'Donnell. I think I said that at the time. She didn't finish the sentence, and Nora finished it for her or helped her through it. Not because she was a nervous wreck, but I think she was in her mind, thinking what her answer should be, not what her answer was. I just find her not believable. I brought this up in the last show, I think. he was trying to sleep with me. I never presume that of any man unless he either asks or makes a move, neither of which she said in that interview happened. So I took it as versus it was. And if you go through all of the cases up into the most recent ones and the bandwagon, because there are always those who jump in later. I'm not to dispute anybody else. That's why I think she's not believable. I haven't mentioned the others. I said she, because I found a lot of stuff with her that either wasn't believable or was contradictory, or there's this crazy background. I say crazy because, when you're that emphatic and that's your life, I don't know. So that's my thoughts. That's how how on the evidence that I have with her right now. It's an innocuous charge. I could make it against you, Matt.
No, I hear what you're saying.
I could make it against you. I could say you and I heard all the time. You're trying to hit on me, honey? I mean, that's the thing.
Right.
That's what gets me crazy about this is it's just not enough. We need better.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Well,
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I haven't followed the details of her testimony enough, but, I think you have to put it in context. And when there are, a number of other women, it's worth, just assessing them, the totality of it. But, look, I mean, I'm always for everybody keeping their powder dry until there's been an investigation of these things. So, I don't think he should quit before the investigation. I don't think everyone should judge until there's been one. And it may turn out the investigation isn't very definitive, but it'll at least be helpful and for everybody to decide what's next. I think in this day and age, any politician who's, in such a prominent role, who is that cavalier about his remarks is flirting with disaster.
Can I make one point there? Because you said it. Let me just answer you before I forget. So your point's well taken. Absolutely. But I think we have to put this in context because you and I don't think about this, but we're of a different generation than the young ones. And here's this Italian boy who grew up and his father was friends with Sinatra and his father was a tough cookie and a ratpacker kind of, governor and yada, yada, yada. That style in New York of that generation of man is not unusual. I hate to say it. I mean, you go into Brooklyn and you meet, they're everywhere. And that's just the way that they were taught or the way that they operate or what they think is cool. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no question that's how Cuomo is. But, you're a politician. You're the governor of New York. You have to be...
Well, that's why he said I didn't mean any offense. To him, it was just, that's who I am. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just playing the defensive with you. I'm playing, devil's advocate.
Well, first, I will say Mario Cuomo was sort of utterly proprietous. I mean,
no, but he was cool. He was cool.
Yeah, he was more like Fauci. He was like, a hyper good student, and he's different than his dad in a lot of ways.
He's tougher than his dad.
In any event, there are no friends to catch him on the way down.
Yeah. Okay, that's true too.
And that's not helping matters for him,
His daughters live with him. What happened to the Kennedy girl, wife?
Well, they divorced some time ago, and they had 3 kids, and she's not remarried, I don't think,
and the daughters are with the father very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little odd because they're in their 20s now, I think, but they're kind of, at least 1 or 2 of them is living there.
It's fascinating.
In any event, we'll see what happens.
So it is interesting. The Democrat who's on the committee to look into impeaching him in the New York legislature is not going for impeachment, but looking into, is it possible to impeach? They're slowing it down, in other words. And of course, Gillibrand and Schumer jumped on the bandwagon this week. I wanted to bring that up because we laughed about the fact that they hadn't last week, but they did this week, and it's because they're covering all their bases.
Right, and they did it together so that
right.
Gillibrand wouldn't be out, out front again.
And I find that fascinating. But Pelosi is sticking with him, although on Morning Joe today, I don't watch Morning Joe, but reporting is that she kind of like went off her hard mark on it. But
yeah, and Biden was tough,
I don't think Biden was tough at all. I think Biden was just honest. He said, if the allegations prove true, guess what? Ta-ta. And possible, jail time. That was an that was just,
that's
you asked him a question. That's true. The answer.
It's true. He just didn't have to say it. I mean, I think
I think he did have to say it, actually.
He could have just said, let's wait for the investigation.
He did. He said that first, and then he said this. But I disagree with you. I think that Biden's whole, and this is, we're going to get into this in a second, his whole MO is truth, justice, and the American way, honesty. And
well, his whole thing has been for 30 years since Anita Hill has been like, I'm a defender of women. And so, that's why he was so out front on the Violence Against Women Act. I mean, aside from any real motivations,
But as an old man,
yes, that's, But I think he has a special interest in these issues. And he has, from a policy standpoint, he did as vice president, his work with Lady Gaga and others. So,
going back,
his cameos on Law and Order, SVU. So, look, it's his shtick, and we'll see where it goes. I mean,
I think he rides it out unless something really horrendous.
I think there's a pretty good chance. He's got a year and a half.
Yeah,
he's got a year and a half. I don't think the investigation's going to prove this much more serious assault charge. I think he is going to ride it out, but who the hell knows?
Yeah, well, like I said, unless there's a shoe drop, kind of thing.
I mean, so far the voters have not dramatically turned on him.
No. In fact, more of them don't want him to leave. And that's a big part. I find that fascinating, by the way.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
It's extraordinary. Going back to that Biden MO now, however they've defined him. That's another thing with the border thing, because it goes against how they defined him. His not being straightforward and upfront. I think what's been so refreshing about Biden for so many of us is the fact that he's been deliciously straightforward.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So to start playing games on an issue, not so much. We need to move on. I want to talk about Mitch McConnell, my favorite horrible person in the whole wide world. I mean, my God, a cartoon character. He's bellyaching on the Senate floor yesterday, threatening to grind the Senate to a halt if the Dems let him keep the power to grind the Senate to a halt, which he's already been ground to a halt by Mitch McConnell. I mean, it's just like, are you kidding?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's his chutzpah level is.
It's just like he's scared, honey. I think the man's scared. He's holding on to that power, honey. Even if it's by a tiny little piece of yarn. And if they take that filibuster thing away, he's toast. What say you? Well,
I say they should take it away, and I think he's been a master of the Senate in terms of just stopping things, not really in passing things, but more in stopping things. And he wants to hold on to that power. Now, I think he will keep a lot of it. I don't think they're going to abolish the filibuster. I think they're going to pare it back a bit. But, he's totally shameless. With the Supreme Court justices, it's unbelievable. Merrick Garland, we can't do it this year.
He's a horrible human being. I mean, he is...
Amy Coney Barrett, we got to get her through this week.
Oh, my God.
I mean, he's a shit.
And tell us what you really think.
Yeah,
no, it's absolutely awful. I will say this: Biden was absolutely, we're not going to get rid of the filibuster, and he is changing his tune little by little by little by little. And I can see why he is changing his tune a little bit. I don't know if he ever gets past Joe Manchin and what's her name from Arizona, but I will say this: he could prove to be, Mr. Biden, one of the great presidents. He's got nothing to lose right now. He came in at the right time. He's positioned properly in all sorts of ways. If he could get rid of the filibuster and really start to push through those hot button issues that got caught up, in the Mitch McConnell crap and the Republican crap. Imagine the change in this country if you ended gridlock, if you really ended the partisan crap and start the ball rolling again in a way that things actually get done for the American people. And the culture wars, and it could be such a sea change. It could be such a sea change. It could be such a magical moment. And he could do it if he could control Manchin and the other guy. And what's her name?
Yeah, I think you're right, but tough to hold the Dems together on everything, and tough to get this filibuster so that's more possible. So,
except to say that if you appeal to them, if as Joe Biden, appeals to his caucus and says, look, we can become masters of history at this point, if we could pull this off and your name would go down with this historically, why wouldn't you? I mean, it's a moment. That's my point.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. So I think they need better PR people, those Dems. He's out there selling the American Rescue Plan. Anything to say about that other than he's out there to sell the American Rescue Plan?
Well, like the car dealers say, it sells itself. I think it's very popular. I think he wants to be sure he gets credit for it. The Republicans don't take credit for it. You saw a couple of them trying to claim credit for things in there, even though they voted against it. And I think he's going to, make that case. And sure, why not do a victory lap? So I think it's good he's doing it. It's very popular. It's hopefully going to do some good, and we'll see what happens.
And all those photo
ops. And of course, the big thing is it really, with that child credit being only a 1-year thing, means the Republicans next year going into the election are going to have to decide: do you want to raise taxes on working families by getting rid of this credit, or are you going to extend it permanently?
It was a brilliant move. That was one of whoever wrote that one.
They're screwed on that.
Yeah. And by the way, they're starting to say maybe we screwed up on this bill. They're going, we might have misplayed this one, which is going to change the entire tenor of Biden's presidency. So I think that's incredible. There are going to be photo ops of people getting that check and going out to send that, check in hand. I mean, it's vaccines. I mean, it's just,
towns that don't have to fire the fire chief.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty incredible. All right, we're on to this one, and I think this is huge. I want to see how this is played by the administration. But this report on Putin fixing the elections and the Rudy Giuliani and Senator Ron Johnson and what's his face, Devin Nunes, and in the midst of all of this, they trashed Hunter Biden. Biden showed a new side of himself yesterday when he said he's going to pay when speaking about Putin. And is Putin a killer? Yes. You just saw the side briefly. Go back and find that tape, folks, if you haven't seen it, of who Biden is beneath the Jolly Rancher, if you will.
Right.
I mean,
Jolly Rancher.
I don't know where that came from, but there's a big story here, and what are they going to do with it? I mean, seriously, what are they going to do with this? This can't just become an ash heap of, a lot of paperwork. This needs to be front and center. This gets to the heart of the Mueller report and them not being able to get to answers. This gets to Manafort. This gets to this. I'm telling you, this ought to scare Republicans.
I don't know. They've never been scared by these
but this is
of Soviet and Russian influence before. Well, I think it's a little tricky for Biden. I don't think he can totally do it as my boy's innocent. I think.
Well, that's the least of it.
I think the best thing they can do is take action against Putin.
Well, he just gave him more sanctions today for Navalny, but no, I mean, see, there are a lot of unanswered questions still. And if you go, Rachel Maddow, I didn't see it, but a friend told me about it this morning. She did a piece on this, a big segment on it yesterday or last night's show, apparently, where she's, connecting the dots between, what went on in the first election, what went on in the second election, how they tried to cover it up, how they didn't let anybody talk, during the hearings and the Mueller report. And this one and that one and the impeachment, and that it all comes full circle, and the facts are there. We still don't know what this weird connection is that the Republicans have with Putin and Russia and Trump. And there are inroads into that. There are now maps that you can follow to get you where you want to go to the answers, which I think most Americans, if they have any brains at all, there's a connection between Putin controlling Trump and what happened in the Trump years. That's all I'm saying. So I'm saying this is not a report that I want to see just thrown away. I want to see what happens to it.
Agree. I think it,
It opens a can of worms that needed opening. That said, it also gets back to Sheldon Whitehouse. I've always felt he was very underrated. Am I wrong? He's the Democratic senator.
Sheldon Whitehouse, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got some more attention in recent years for his performance at hearings and his particular interest in dark money and campaign finance reform. He's an impressive guy. He was a prosecutor, in U.S. attorney in Rhode Island, or the state AG, I forget. But he's impressive. Super preppy background. Yeah. He's like Sheldon Whitehouse the Fourth, and he's like the preppiest.
Yes. Yeah, like the ones we went to school with.
Yeah. Super.
Yeah.
He's got it. But that said, he's got a little, he doesn't come across that way. And he's
not happy with Kavanaugh and how Kavanaugh got in. And he was really vociferous during those hearings, needless to say. And he's challenging the FBI that they didn't do a background check, that they were stopped apparently by the Trump administration. And he's brought that up. And I think that is great. But I also think he is a man who could be looking into that Russia thing.
No question. He could take a big lead on that.
Yeah. So that's why I brought him up, and I was thinking about him the other day. Biden signaling U.S. won't be leaving Afghanistan by the May 1st deadline. I wonder how that's going to play in Peoria.
I don't know. I think as long as people aren't dying, as long as Americans aren't dying, I don't think there's huge pressure to leave them, to pull them all out. In the abstract, when you ask people, do you want them home, they'll say yes. But the fact that they're there and they're not getting shot at, I think in the end people are prepared to live with that, especially in fairly small numbers.
Yeah. Interesting.
If they start getting shot at, then it's going to be a different story. I really do worry about the Taliban coming back and what that's going to be.
I'm with you on that. I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world to even think about getting out of there at this point. But hey,
all the women and the human rights.
Oh, it's a horror.
And the theocracy.
Yeah.
And don't think the terrorists won't be invited back. And
it's at a good place right now. It's not where we want it, but it's contained, if you will, quote unquote. Sort of like the Palestinian-Israeli issue is contained at the moment. Sometimes that's the most you can hope for, and let history do its time do its thing. So I'm not thrilled about them leaving in the first place. So sort of streaks of Iraq, if you will. By the way, I want to go back just one quick section on that report yesterday on what went on with Russia. They also implicated Iran, not China, which I thought was fascinating. And that's going to come into play soon.
Yeah, I don't think there's any rush to get back to the table with Iran.
Right, so. Yeah. And so that's also interesting, by the way, that they're not, rushing into making another deal again. Times change, right? That's why I say, you got to go slow sometimes with this political stuff, because time does a real interesting thing to what seems huge at one moment and just a year later can seem ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So before we close, I was wondering, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't bring up?
I think you pretty much covered the waterfront. I guess I'm concerned about these vaccines in Europe getting pulled and, continued.
Well, it's the AstraZeneca
outbreaks there because of the AstraZeneca and other causes. And, I think I think when any place is threatened, we're all threatened because the damn thing will mutate and eventually show up here. We got to get everyone in the U.S. vaccinated, but we really got to get the globe vaccinated.
Well, they are asking us to give up some of our vaccines to start sending to some of the poorer countries. I think that they're going to want to get to more than the percentage that they have vaccinated in the United States before they do that, and probably that's rightfully so. It's a little too soon, and what have you. And then get into border things, because you're going to find out if they can't contain it in Europe, how do you let them back in the country with these variants that there's no vaccine for. So it's a good point that you bring up there. Be concerned about that. I want to end on two notes. I want to end on, because I know how much you love music. I did not watch the Grammys. Most people did not, apparently. I don't know. It just seems like I can't get into the arts right now, which is hard because you know how much I love to support the arts, and I love the arts, but they just seem like another world away, even at this point. So, congratulations to all the winners. I'm sorry I missed it, but, it is what it is. And then the other thing I wanted to end on, you're going to think this is totally weird, but maybe not so weird. You'll understand it. There was a headline that really got my attention, and it speaks to, on so many levels, to so many things that we're dealing with. The headline was, as endangered birds lose their song, they can't find mates. And it's because there are no proper role models, because they're dying. They're not being taught to sing.
Yeah, that's depressing.
How sad is that? It was a study done.
Can't we get out there with loudspeakers and recordings and boost them along?
This made me sad because this is like, are you kidding? Do you people realize how you are destroying the earth? And no birds singing.
We're going to have to IVF the birds.
I mean, seriously, right? This is just like, get it together, folks. I mean, a world without birds singing. I can't imagine.
Well, that's grim. That's grim. Jesus Christ.
Okay. Is that a bad place to end?
No. I think it's appropriately somber. Hopefully better news next week.
Nice to talk to you, Matthew. See you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.